My dad called me a failure in front of his entire company. Owen Hartley had one rule: don't embarrass the family name. He said it the morning of my high school graduation, the morning of my college orientation, and again the afternoon I told him I wasn't joining Hartley Construction. He built that company with his hands, 40 employees, contracts across 3 counties. He wanted his son next to him at the top. I wanted to make furniture, not assemble it, make it by hand in a shop from raw lumber. He didn't speak to me for 4 months after I told him. I moved into a rented workshop space at 23 with a table saw I bought off Craigslist and about $8,000 in savings. The first year I made 6 pieces, sold 2. The second year I got a small mention in a local design blog. The third year I started getting commissions, custom dining tables, bed frames, shelving units for restaurants, trying to look rustic on a budget. I wasn't getting rich, but I was covering rent and putting a little away. My dad's response whenever relatives asked how I was doing: still playing with wood. He didn't mean it as a compliment. My cousin Felix got married that October. Big venue, open bar, the whole thing. My dad and I were civil because my mom had specifically asked us both in separate phone calls to be civil. We shook hands, we sat at different tables. I talked to aunts I hadn't seen in years. It was fine, not warm, but fine. Then his business partner Graham found me near the cocktail hour. Graham had known me since I was 12. He asked what I was working on. I pulled up a few photos on my phone: a walnut dining table I just finished for a restaurant in the city, a custom bookshelf with dovetail joinery, a bed frame commission. I was halfway through. He went quiet looking at them. Not polite quiet, actually quiet. He made me text him the photos right then. 2 weeks later, Graham called me directly. He was renovating the Hartley Construction offices, new reception area, conference room, executive suite on the 3rd floor. He wanted custom pieces throughout. He said he'd been meaning to upgrade for years and had been pricing out commercial furniture suppliers. Then he saw my photos. He offered me the contract. I want to be honest about what happened in my body when I read the number he sent over. I sat down on my workshop floor and just stayed there for a while. I said yes. I spent 4 months on that job. Built a reception desk in white oak with hand-cut brass inlays, a 14-foot conference table, shelving along 2 walls of the executive suite, smaller accent pieces throughout. Graham came by the workshop twice to check progress. He brought 2 colleagues the second time. They stood around the conference table in my shop and ran their hands along the surface without saying anything. The installation took 3 days. Graham hosted a company anniversary dinner the following month. 40 employees, spouses, the main contractors, a few longtime clients. He invited me. Said he wanted to introduce the craftsmen behind the renovation because several people had already asked about the furniture. I didn't know my dad would be there. I should have assumed. Hartley Construction and Graham's firm had worked together for 15 years. Of course my dad was on the guest list. I walked in, saw him standing near the bar with 2 men I didn't recognize, and watched his face go through about 6 expressions in 4 seconds. He didn't come over. Dinner was at round tables of 8. I was seated near the front with Graham and his wife. About 40 minutes in, Graham stood up and tapped his glass. He talked about the company, 22 years in business, the renovation being a signal of where they were headed. Then he said he wanted to acknowledge someone who'd made the new space feel like it actually meant something. He said my full name. He talked about the commission. He talked about driving out to my workshop and watching me work. He said the conference table alone had already generated more compliments than anything else in the building, and that 3 of his clients had asked for referrals. He held up his glass and said something I haven't been able to forget. He said that kind of craftsmanship doesn't come from following the easy path. The room applauded. I stood up, said thank you, sat back down. I didn't look at my dad, but Graham did. I caught it just for a second. Graham looked directly at my father across the room while he was still speaking. Not aggressive, just steady, like he wanted to make sure the right person heard it. The dinner ended. People came over to talk to me. I gave out 3 business cards to men who identified themselves as developers. My dad was on the other side of the room the whole time, working his way toward the exit. He stopped next to my chair on his way out. I looked up. He stood there for a moment. His mouth opened slightly. Nothing came out. Then he put his hand on my shoulder once, just for a second, and walked away. I watched him go. Outside, through the window, I could see him standing next to his truck in the parking lot. He wasn't on his phone. He wasn't talking to anyone. He was just standing there in the dark with his hands in his jacket pockets, looking at nothing. I stayed until the room cleared. Then I drove home, unlocked the workshop, and went back to the bed frame that was waiting for me.